Hello again everyone, my name is India and welcome back to the History Rescuer. So today I'm going to be telling you about what I spent my weekend doing because it's a little bit unconventional and I'm sure that there are many morbid people out there who are just like me who would like to do it too. So this weekend I upped my nerdy local historian game to probably weird obsessive heights by going and helping out my local cemeteries association with a cleanup day. And that doesn't just mean mowing lawns. What that meant was I was actually involved in cleaning the grave sites and the disused areas of the cemetery, and even doing a little bit of cleaning of headstones and things like that. I found this experience to be super rewarding and super enjoyable, being someone who's trained as an archaeologist as well as someone who spends almost her whole professional working life involved and neck deep in local history and local people's stories. I found this experience to be really enriching, and I also found it to be something that just felt really good. I felt like I was doing something really wonderful for my community because a lot of these sites aren't popularly visited. They are definitely disused and not cared for as much as I would like to see them cared for if it was my relatives and my family. And so it felt really nice to be able to honor these people who were buried there in this small way. So if you're interested in doing this kind of thing as well, I've got 5 tips for you to know before you start and for what you need to bring with you when you go. Find your local cemetery's heritage group or support group and find out what days they do working bees, because you should not go onto the site of a cemetery and start doing alterations unless you have permission or are part of a group that has permission. If your cemetery doesn't have a group like this, what you should do is you should chat to your local council or go to your local library and figure out who has ownership of the site and custodianship, and then actually discuss with them what you can and can't do and if you can do anything. That's the best way to do it. You can also found your own group, but that sort of thing is quite involved and you would need to actually step that out. And so that's not something I'm going to talk about in this video, but it's something to consider if there's nothing around you that would work for you. As part of that, I would recommend chatting to them, reading previous posts, seeing what your group does by and large, because you may just be planting plants along a driveway, or you could actually be doing some really in-depth stuff with graves and recording things. There's a lot of things that cemeteries need for upkeep, and it doesn't always just involve digging up graves and removing leaves and things like that. But it's all equally rewarding. Once you have found out what you are able to do, once you have found this group and you've figured out what day you should go, what you should do is you should look up what you can and can't do in regards to conservation. So every state and territory in Australia has a different set of guidelines for how we preserve heritage materials, especially public heritage materials. So for instance, in New South Wales, the rules will be very different in Queensland, and I'm sure that it's very similar as well in the UK as well as overseas in the US. So be sure to look up your local state or territory's guidelines before you go in, and also figure out what sort of cleaning materials your group are allowed to use in the cemetery and what they're not. When founding these kinds of groups, you really need to look at the conservation needs of the cemetery itself and actually involve a professional conservator of some kind to provide a plan of what you can and can't do without damaging the materials, because the last thing that you want to do as someone who is trying to help is actually cause permanent damage to these items of historical value. And unfortunately, the road to hell is paved with the best intentions, and so you just need to be very aware of what is best practice and what needs to be left up to the professionals. Number 3 is don't do anything you're not comfortable with. So say you've turned up to your group and you're given your shovel and your pickaxe, or you're given your spritzy bottles and a scrubbing brush, and you've read somewhere that the materials that you're using aren't appropriate for cleaning the graves. You are allowed to say no, okay? That is all right. If you, for instance, are using a plastic or a metal bristle brush on marble or on sandstone, you are going to cause permanent damage to that stone. And if you see it happening, it's your responsibility to not do it yourself. find something else to do if you need to. Find something else to do within the group. Number 4, bring gloves. Working in cemeteries is messy business. By nature, they are outdoors. They are often disused, so there will be fallen branches, lots of leaf litter, and as we know, there is always something living in leaf litter. So even when I was wearing my gloves this weekend, my hands were absolutely caked in dirt. It was underneath my nails, and after just a couple of hours, I was filthy from head to toe. So bring gloves. Bring gloves, bring gloves. The last thing that you want is a trip to the doctors because you've been bitten by a big ant or bitten by a spider or something like that. And last but not least, be respectful. It's important to remember that these are grave sites of real human beings and real people. They are someone's loved ones. Even if the grave itself is 100 years old, they will often have flowers placed on them. And just because you can't see those flowers, those people are still cared for by someone. So just be really, really careful and, you know, avoid stepping on the grave too much if you can. And just, you know, I don't know, remember who it is under there. Try and read the headstones and get a sense for who they were, and then work from that point of view. Just a couple of side notes. If you are going to step on a gravesite, just be aware that a lot of them do have cave-ins because of coffin collapse. So when a grave is old enough and the water and the soil gets into the coffin, it will actually collapse in on itself as the deterioration process happens, and there will be a divot. So do be careful when you're walking around cemeteries, because those are just kind of part of the process. That cave-in process is a lot of the reason behind why gravestones are tipped or leaning different ways, and it's also a reason that the platform that's often placed over the top of a gravesite is collapsed as well. The curbing around the side can often crumble just as a result of being exposed to the elements so often. So when you're stepping on that, just try and be very careful. Test your footing before you put your full weight on it, and just be very, very careful. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a chance to give it a go yourself and experience the rewarding part of history that is helping to clean up graves and contribute to your community as well in this way. I'm India. Thank you so much for watching my video. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you again soon. Thank you so much.